Welcome to the program. I'm Buddy Martin. It's called the Buddy Martin Show, and tonight's going to be a good one as the blood continues to flow through the streets, but so does the money. Best thing to be today is a fired football coach. Wow. If Tony Barnhart and I could only know that, we'd have gone into coaching instead of sports writing. But Tony joins us, Mr. College Football, tonight to talk about the 12 beheadings. I call it the Slaughterhouse dozen. Craziness. I've never seen anything like it in my lifetime. Probably Tony hasn't either, and that represents the last 200 years. So there you go. So tonight in the program, Tony will join us. A new name around here, Keith Niebuhr, someone we've known for a long, long time. Keith is at On 3. We've known Keith for 20 years. Be glad to get his take on a few things and maybe see what this Florida-Kentucky game looks like. And then we'll round it up with Kevin Brockway, the Gainesville Sun. Meanwhile, this is the Buddy Martin Show. I'm Buddy Martin. Let's do it.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ? I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Evening. There's a lot going on in college football. Who better to talk to than Mr. College Football himself, who joins us now from Atlanta, GA. Hi, Tony. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, buddy. Hard to believe, week 11, but Florida, Georgia is over, so you know we're getting ready to head down that November stretch. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, there's some pretty good numbers on the game I'll share with you a little bit later on. As you know, it's still a granddaddy in many respects. Such an important game. Sadly, the last one in Jacksonville for a couple of years. You and your boys are going to have to alter your schedule a little bit here.
We are, and we're going to have we have a Zoom call about once a month to discuss a lot of things, but most of the time it's talk about the Florida Georgia game. So we're going to figure out what we're going to do next year and the following year before we go back.
Well, of course, you're supposed to be retiring, Tony. Let me remind you of that.
Well, when I'm with my boys, I am retired.
There you go.
I am retired. That's right.
Tell folks about your friends and who you meet up with every year in Jacksonville. It's been a great ritual for you.
These were fraternity brothers. I started at Georgia Southern, and these were fraternity brothers from Georgia Southern. And when I left to go to Georgia, they sort of adopted Georgia, and we started going for the. This goes all the way back to 1980 when Carl Brantley, who's the best man in my wedding, he went to Jacksonville, and he was down in that corner of the end zone when Lindsey Scott scored.
Mm-hmm. He said, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that name.
I understand. Some memories just won't go away. But anyway, we've been going every year ever since. I've missed 3 or 4 when I was working for CBS. I had to be in New York that weekend, but it's a special time, and we are very blessed to have this relationship.
You know, Tony had a good friend of mine the other day who's an attorney. He's getting up there in years himself. And he said to me, you know how lucky you are to be able to do what you like doing, having a meaningful job that you enjoy, the purpose, and that people care about it? And I said, I am very blessed in that regard. And you have been too, Tony. We've been very blessed as 2 old Gators. We were there during the good days.
That's right.
So we had the glory days of sports writing. Ours, Bill Peterson used to call it sport writing.
Sport writing. Yeah. Well, we Buddy, I always tell all of us who grew up in the newspaper business that we were lucky in the sense that people were still having fun. People were still enjoying. We didn't make a lot of money, but we never got in the business to make money.
Money? What was that?
Nobody was making any money, but we did something that we loved to do.
Yeah.
And got to go to a lot of places. And so I always tell people, you know what, buddy, we're not lucky, but we are blessed because we put our work to put ourselves in this position. So yeah, I always tell my boys, I said, boys, we're not lucky, we're blessed.
Well said. I have to, just pops in my mind. You know how we are at this age. We can get it out or we won't remember it. But I always remember the great story Furman Bisher told me one time. And I've never forgotten it. And Evan Pope and I were, I guess, talking to him. And he said he used to drive a kerosene truck for his parents in North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he did, you know. One of the things that they did was he made pretty good money in the off season and going to college. And he would, at the end of the day, they'd all meet up at a truck stop someplace, and there'd be the guys who drove trucks. And they'd sit around there and have a cocktail or two at night, you know, and talk about life. These hillbillies in North Carolina. And so Furman was talking about, I guess Furman was, I guess he was chewing tobacco in those days, whatever. But the bottom line was they got to talk about money. Well, you know, that's something like we didn't talk about money. They're going to pay us to go to a ball game. Are you kidding me? We'd pay them, you know. So they're sitting around on a rainy day at a truck stop in North Carolina. Furman and his buddies, all older. And they're talking about money and what they'd like to make one day. And some of the older guys talked about, man, I'll tell you what, I sure like to be able to make crack into that figure, make 4,000 or 5,000 one year, you know, would be a great thing. But you know, it's going to be hard. But how about you, Bill? Well, I think I'm looking for 5,000 one year if I'm lucky. I really hope. And they discussed these figures, and they came around to Furman. And Furman and these boys were chewing tobacco. Furman says, "Well, guys, I hope to be able to go into business and make $10,000 one day." And he said, the guy looked at him with, by God, I guess you would.
But buddy, your first paying newspaper job, do you know what was your salary?
Well, I interned at the Journal-Constitution in Atlanta during Florida and made $42.50 a week. And I was the highest paid intern because I had half a year's experience at the Ocala Star-Banner, where I don't even know what I made there. It was so low. So $42.50 living in Atlanta was what I made there.
Yeah.
When I finally got out, I went back to the Gainesville Sun and made the hourly wage there until I was laid off because they had a big layoff, and I was a senior, and they had a guy behind me named Ben Kaysen, who was a sophomore, who later became the news editor of the Washington Post during the Watergate days. And Ben was from Worthington Springs. Anyway, bottom line was I got a call the next day from Ocala, and the guy that I knew there, Bernard Watts, worked a little bit part-time. He said, "How about coming to work back in Ocala?" And I said, "You got it, pal." He said, "We'll pay you $75 a week." I went, wow. I just got married. I'm on move back to Ocala. And that was the money. Now, I don't complain. I was delighted to get that, you know. And, but, you know, Tony, now that we're on the subject, and I don't want to be just a couple of geezers talking about the good old days, but one of our biggest problems today is the money. It is the problem we've got right now. As I said, the blood is flowing through the streets of what I call the Slaughterhouse dozen guys who've been fired, and the money's flowing too. And you're talking about absurd amount of money. I mean, look at the whole Brian Kelly thing. I mean, he's apparently negotiating that with LSU on that figure, which was $54 million, not to coach,
right?
Not to coach. And you think, how can you? And then of course his boss got fired, Scott Woodward, and his total buyout with everybody he had to fire was, I think, $129 million, wasn't it? Something like that. How in the world can you? I mean, look, if I was putting out the paper and I caused them to go in overtime in a back shop a couple of weeks in a row, I'd be fired. I'd be about $100, you know. So anyway, so yeah, that's a crazy thing. And I'm thinking, you know, you and I have seen a lot, but we've never seen days like this.
No, and we all knew the money was going to be big as the television contracts, but we never imagined so big that you could pay a guy $54 million not to coach. It's but there's no structure, and people are afraid that they're going to lose the next high-profile coach because they didn't offer him enough money. You know, a lot of these ADs say, "Look, we can lose coaches, but we can't ever lose anything because we didn't have enough money." You never want to be able to say that. So
because that
it
makes
has been, it is
forever. Yeah.
it is something.
Yeah, I don't even know where to go with this. I can imagine you and I sitting down talking when we were kids saying, one day the head coach of Florida will make, 13.6 million, which is the figure that they're supposedly throwing at Lane Kiffin. We'll get to that in a minute about that. But
You remember when Steve Spurrier made $2 million?
that was absurd.
That was incredible. People could not believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being at a press conference with Coach Spurrier, and he wanted somebody to ask him about it. I
remember when he made $1 million to go to Washington, and that was unheard of then. And I remember one time, Urban Meyer told me a story recently, and that he had to tell Jeremy Foley not to raise him that much. He said, "No, that's too much. I don't want to be a money person. Don't give me that much right now." Have you ever thought? I mean, my gosh, that's amazing. Yep. But anyway, so we digress. But we do have a great sport, and we do have a game that we love. And I don't know what is going to happen. The polls came out today. 2 Big Ten teams in 1 and 2. Obviously Ohio State, and now the surprise with Indiana, which is a great story. And then we've got 4 SEC teams up there pretty high. And I don't know what it means, but it is the first time they've had the ranking. What do you get out of that?
Well, what you get out of it is it's I want to know kind of what the committee is thinking. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that you've got 2 big teams up top, then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are all the SEC. And the SEC has 6 of the top 12, and it's a 12-team field. And so buddy, this goes all the way back to Destin. Remember, you and I talked after Destin and talked about the fact that while we were there, the media guys were there, they handed out these flyers, 6-page flyers, touting the SEC strength of schedule over the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. That's when it all began. They wanted the committee to think about strength of schedule. Please think about our strength of schedule, and that's what they did. And when the rankings were released last night, like I said, 6 of the top 12 come from the SEC, and it all started last June in Destin.
Yeah, and this is what we got going on here right now. And I wanted to go back to Florida, Georgia. I saw the numbers on this TV numbers. The 4 top games last weekend in college football. Vanderbilt, Texas. Who would ever thought that game would be so big? And, of course, Texas wound up winning it. But kudos to Vanderbilt. They just wouldn't quit. And it was a great game to watch. Oklahoma, Tennessee. Vanderbilt, Texas got 4.5 million. Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Tennessee, I thought they'd get more. 4.8 million. Penn State at Ohio State, their big game. 7.2 million, and the number one game for people eyeballs was Florida, Georgia, 7.8 million. Continues to be. What did you take out of that game?
I thought Florida played really hard. I thought and I got to give them a lot of credit given what they had been through all week. But I heard from a number of people during the game. I said, I think this game's shaping up the way that Georgia's last 2 games with Ole Miss and Auburn shaped up. Georgia hung around and finally in the fourth quarter, they put together a couple of drives, a couple of stops, and they win the game. And that's what happened. And credit to Georgia, but also, again, credit to Florida because it's got to be tough on those kids.
Yeah, Georgia's just living a life like that this year. They have to be lucky and good. And I kiddingly said his name should be Kirby Lucky, not Kirby Smart. But the fact is they've done this. They've proven they can do it, and they did it at times when you thought they were down and out. Their quarterback is a lot better than people gave him credit for, obviously. And they're playing good enough to win. That's what it's about. Doing what you say in the end, that's what matters, getting that W. So I give Kirby all the credit in the world for that. Let me get down and dirty with you on a couple of things. You're on coaches. You're not a guy to trash people, I know. We both like coaches. We do. We went around all of our lives. And for the most part, very few we can't get along with. But here's what I want to ask you about the Slaughterhouse dozen, as I call them. how come we hear people talking about what a great guy Hugh Freeze is, what a great guy Billy Napier was, and nobody says Brian Kelly. And he's now apparently, it came out today, he is negotiating a $54 million buyout to not coach in Baton Rouge. Of course, he was fired on October 26th after that loss to Texas A&M. Can you imagine that when the season started, that Brian Kelly would be fired?
No, I had LSU as my dark horse team to get to Atlanta.
Yeah.
No, and the guy's won. He's won 323 games. He's won more. He's of any active coach in America. He's won more games than anybody. And so, but it looked, and I only see it from a distance. It looked, just looking the sideline demeanor and all that stuff. There was something dysfunctional about that team. Nussmeier, we were talking Nussmeier, who was a 4,000-yard passer, not 3,000, 4,000-yard passer last year. Yeah. And we thought this guy was a shoe-in for maybe the Heisman Trophy.
Yeah.
And so it has been a bizarre – when that story is told, what a bizarre thing that is going to be.
It is. His official statement, Kelly said, was, as we discussed in our meeting, I'm open to your desire, LSU, to reach a settlement of what's owed to me under the contract. Although, of course, it'll have to make sense financially. That's a statement. And I'm going to ask you, do you think he's hireable by somebody else? Because it's a wide open market. There's a bunch of jobs open.
Absolutely. He's hireable by somebody. Somebody needs a coach who took Notre Dame to a national championship game, who's won more games than any other coach in the history of the University of Notre Dame. Yeah. No. But one of the things that's changing now is you get to forgiveness a lot quicker than you used to. And if you can happen to win football games, it's a lot faster. So if he wants to coach again, he'll coach again.
Well, let me bring in our friend Keith Niebuhr and see what his way on that too. Keith and I go way back. He's an Ocala guy. He's on 3, been writing some great stuff. The first time I had him on the program. Keith, say hi to Tony.
Hey, I'm. It's great to be here, Tony. I mean, I've been following Tony for years and years and years. I've only met him a couple times, but just a big fan, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but don't say a long time. Long time.
Hey, the long time applies to me being old too, not just you guys.
Yeah, you're not old, pal. But I remember you were a puppy. But anyway, you're doing good stuff on you. We're going to get to you in a second on what odds you think there are that Florida might hire Lane Kiffin. There's changed since today, Tony. If you know, I don't know what you can go by on the odds. You can tell something, but he now has moved up. So, Tony, if Brian Kelly were to get hired, who would hire him?
Oh, it looks like it looks like the governor now, or the board of trustees is going to do it. The Verge Osbury, who has moved to athletic director, I don't think he's going to. I know he's not going to hire the. Of
course,
coach.
He's not going to get to do it.
I think you're talking about a combination of a president and the board of trustees.
Right, but who would Kelly go if he was going to be hired? Who would they think?
Where would he go? I don't know, but he depends. What it depends on does he want to get back in at the what I call the crazy level of college football, which is where he was in the SEC, or would he rather come back and just don't worry about just coach ball? Because some guys get to that point in their life and career. I don't want any of the side deal. I want to coach ball, and it could be that Brian Kelly just wants to coach ball when all is said and done.
Some coaches have tried that. Doesn't always work out. Keith, what do you think? Is Brian Kelly hireable by somebody else? And where would you see him going if he was?
I'll defer to the two experts here who've done this, who followed more searches than I have. But, maybe let's say I think Tony's probably right. Because look at the jobs that are open. Auburn, Florida, Penn State. Well, they're probably not going to hire him, right? So who? And James Franklin's going to go through this, obviously, or is going through this as well. Yeah. Sure, he would take Auburn. Sure, he would take Florida. But he might have to, and I say settle, it's still a great place to go, but he might have to end up in Blacksburg. NC State's a job that we kind of hate to talk about jobs that aren't open yet, but that's kind of one that people have been rumored for a while that potentially could open. Well, I mean, Tony knows this. NC State's got a pretty rabid fan base football-wise for an ACC school. Maybe it's like that. It's tough to say.
spent a lot of time at Carter Finley Stadium in Raleigh, and Dave Durden does a really good job. Beat Georgia Tech the other night. Didn't just beat Georgia Tech; they took them to the woodshed.
Yeah.
And so I think that will be interesting. Keep your eye on James Franklin to Virginia Tech.
Yeah, he's gone there. He's gone. Yeah, he's going to be going
Keep your eye there. I think that seems to be a fit.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you for sure if I interrupt you, but I'll tell you where Brian Kelly could go. Dan Mullen leaves and goes somewhere, and he goes to UNLV. How about that?
That would be perfect.
That'd be perfect for him. Exactly. That's right. Exactly. So, but anyway, so yeah, all these dozen coaches. I think there'll be 4 more heads to roll. One of them may be in Lexington, Kentucky. He's going to have, you wouldn't, the guy who's got the longest tenured coach, it may finally get him this year, Tony.
Yeah, and you would think if Mitch Barnhart was going to make a change there, he would have gone ahead like everybody else. You want to get in jump on the carousel while it's still spinning, and so. But I spent a lot of time at Kentucky in their football program. That's a different kind of deal. They wanted to run him out of there in his first 2 years, and Mitch Barnhart backed him up. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's just. I mean, what's the over under, Keith, on how many more coaches will get fired?
How much time you get?
Yeah.
Kentucky's interesting because just to backtrack for a second, because look, obviously it doesn't look good for him, but looking at this week's game, he just beat Auburn. This is a weird game. This is it's not a trap game. Florida's got 3 wins, but historically, and you guys remember this, remember when Florida used to play in Kentucky in November every year and struggled and really people remember the 30-something game win streak that Florida has. Well, that was predominantly it started late 80s, but most of it was when that series was in September. That changed the dynamic of that series. Okay. When they switched the schedule and put it in September. So, 45 degrees, cold, wet up there, maybe he gets that one. But that's one. I mean, obviously everybody's watching FSU, people watching NC State. There's going to be a lot more. Let's be honest. I definitely 5, I would think.
Right. Let's discuss this subject. The worst records versus the power conference teams since 2024. I've got a list of about 12 of them who had the worst records against Power 4. Wow. Anybody want to take a guess who a couple of them might be?
Well, buddy, you host a Florida show, so I'm going to guess Florida State's pretty high on that list.
Well, Florida State is. They're 3-13. So, I'll just give them to you. Who was surprised? UCF surprises me being 4-12. Wake Forest 4-10. Auburn, the Auburn Tigers. No wonder he's gone. 4-12.
Yeah.
Arkansas coaches fired. 4-12. Michigan State 4-13. Wisconsin 3-13. Maryland 3-13, and Florida 3-13. How about those coaches? Some of those have gone. We know one in Gainesville. Mississippi State, who has improved as a pretty good football team, has been in every game and gave Florida all they wanted, and just several teams. They're 2-13. They're a better team. Kentucky 2-13,
which is why I've got Georgia on upset alert against Mississippi State on Saturday.
Yeah, that's going to be a
cowbell.
Yeah, that's for sure. Oklahoma State, he's gone. 1-16. Well, and Purdue 0-17.
Ouch.
Wow, that's amazing, isn't it? So let me just say this real quick about my sponsor. I want to get this in. They're great people. Jeffrey Melton is one of the great Gators at the University of Florida. He gets involved in everything, including a great giveaway. If you want free stuff, go to his website, Melton Law, on Facebook, and they give away gobs of tickets and things of that nature, including the hard-to-get gymnastics tickets, etc. And he's been a big supporter of Florida. Only official law firm associated with the University of Florida, and that would be Melton Law. Now up to 50 attorneys, getting bigger, located in Gainesville, Ocala, Williston Lake City, and now down and around Boca Raton. And don't forget, he loves that tune. He loves the name of that song. They won't back down at Melton Law. Okay, guys, let's get serious about this whole deal on the strength of schedule. Okay, and I've been complaining about this for a long time, as have you all have too. I mean, it seems like the committee has been blind to that kind of stuff. The fact that it means so much, and yet it didn't seem to mean a damn thing the last couple of years. And Florida, among others, and especially the SEC, got penalized by it. I like Seth Emerson's piece today. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, Tony. He says, schedule strength, schedule strength, schedule strength. Please stop what you're doing and pay attention to our schedule strength. That's been the mantra for the most past year. The SEC coaches, athletic directors, and commissioners, and the various members of the league's industrial media complex. This was the call to arms after the deepest conference in college football, self-proclaimed, but with justification, got only 3 teams in the inaugural 12-team college football playoff. The lobbying paid off when the CFP agreed in August to tweak one of its strength of schedule metrics. It appeared to pay off even more Tuesday night when the first college football rankings came out of the season. 6 teams in the top 12. What do you think, Keith?
Well, I mean, you have to, that was the whole point of having a playoff. So teams we could see more good games. And I know what I'm trying to say, it's not coming out here, but again, that was supposed to be a benefit. That more teams would have more to play for late in the season. Right. They weren't playing for a Birmingham Bowl bid. They were, if you could be 6-3 in the old days. And if you were a Florida or a Georgia, your season was sort of had already gone south, right? You didn't have a chance to play for anything. Now you do. So I think the excitement level, all that stuff. So this is just a reward for all those years. But it's obviously going to be cyclical because when you look back to the 70s and 80s, the strength of schedule of the SEC wouldn't have been that good at all, quite frankly. And so right now, obviously, this is where a lot of the good teams are. So it's fitting of what I'm talking in circles here, but it's fitting of what it should be, I think. And I think we're going to get even a better representation of that next year with the 9-game schedule in the SEC. Now, everybody's got to go out and get a pretty good Power 4, and we'll see. Some of the schools in the SEC might not go get somebody strong, but hopefully they will.
Well, and guys, what this is all about, and you just touched on it, and this is about getting ready for next year. Okay, this is laying the groundwork with the committee saying, strength of schedule, Seth said in his article, strength of schedule, strength of schedule, strength of schedule, because next year when there are going to be 9 more losses to spread around to everybody, you want to have that in the mindset of the selection committee that hey, 9-3 is not bad. 9-3 is not. I mean, we know this right now as we sit here right here. The first team with 3 losses to make the college football playoff will be from the Southeastern Conference. You can write it down right now.
Well, it's funny. You had people from the Big Ten kind of making fun of the SEC for playing the 8-game schedule. So now the SEC goes to the 9-game schedule next year. And then you look at a school like Indiana with their 9-game schedule, and it's so imbalanced. And I don't see any of that. You look ahead to next year's SEC schedule, and there's really nobody that's got a schedule that's light at all. Now, some of them have more difficult annual rivalry games, but nobody has anything like Indiana, and they played 9 games. So I think the shoe's kind of on the other foot right now because the SEC was getting so much blowback for only playing 8 games by the Conference of North, and now it's kind of flipping in the other direction. Their schedule's too imbalanced up in that league right now.
Tony, the flip side of that is the cannibal syndrome. We all know we got better games and we'll have better games, but it's also they kill each other. You got good teams going to lose 3 or 4 games and they play in their own league. That hurts them in the rankings. It helps the football, the TV ratings. It's costly to them, which puts it back on the coach again. Yeah. You got to win, or you'll be axed. And I don't know. It's good in many ways, and it's what we all wanted. We asked for. We got it. But I think we said we have some unforeseen circumstances here, don't we?
I'll tell you a story. The weekend of the Georgia-Alabama game, Alabama was in Athens. You'll recall that was the weekend where we had like 5 out of 6 games were decided by 1 possession. Every game that came in, it was a 1 possession game. And so all of us old sports writers, we're sitting there watching the games come in, just talking about, and all of a sudden here comes Greg Byrne, the athletic director of Alabama, who knows us all well. I just looked at him. I said, Greg, this is what y'all – I was pointing to the screen and all the close games. This is what y'all wanted.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first step of the SEC looking like the NFL. And we're watching it unfold right before our eyes.
You're right. We wanted to do that. We wanted to also model March Madness, right? We wanted to create that same kind of feeling of, that intensity, which is good. However, in March Madness I think Jimmy Valvano was the first one to say it: survive and advance.
Survive and advance.
And now it kind of become that in the SEC: survive and advance. I mean, you got guys. Here we go. We're talking about Mark Stoops being fired, the longest tenured coach in football. We've had this bloodletting now of 12 people. I would say at least 3 or 4 more will be. Well, remember, all those coaches got to be replaced, right? There's a whole bunch of people moving a lot of places. I'd like to be working for Mayflower right now. I'm telling you what.
Yes.
Are we better off or worse?
Buddy, I don't even think in those terms anymore, because now it is what it is. We operate within the framework of what is established, and it's different. We know it, as Nick Saban told me in a conversation. He says, "Look, it's never going back to the way it used to be. But what we have right now is really not sustainable. The adults in the room are going to have to step up and figure out a way to put some guardrails on this thing, because they haven't done a very good job of it."
We keep saying that, but it's not the government, and I don't know who that's going to be. I don't think we keep expecting somebody to save the franchise, and we'll see what happens. I don't know, Keith, has the game been damaged?
Well, I mean, look, I think so, because, for years coaches have preached chemistry, and so now you got so many players coming and going, and I don't know if that's what you were getting at, Buddy, but so many players are coming and going, right? And so you don't have that chemistry. The roster turnover is just so dramatic. It really is. And I don't know that the quality of football, like the players, the athletes are special. They're getting more athletic by the year. I don't know that they're getting stronger, because I think lifting has changed from the 80s and 90s, but they're more athletic than they've ever been. They're talented.
They're getting beat up more.
These quarterbacks, they're throwing the ball since they're 5 years old. They've got private coaches since they're 6 years old. All right, so that part's getting better, but the product, I don't know. And again, maybe I'm wrong. I don't think the product itself, I don't know how it could be better, because every coach will tell you that football is about chemistry and reps, quality reps. But quality reps also aren't just your individual reps. They're reps with me and Tony and me and you, Buddy, and the 3 of us together and the 11 of us together. And that's taken away now. So now you've got guys coming in for 1-2 years, and they're supposed to replicate the chemistry that you could see from the Great Wall of Florida in 1984 offensive line of the Gators. And those guys were all together for 3 or 4 years. How do you replicate that?
Right.
And I don't really understand.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that to me, there are 2 types of chemistry. One is is the chemistry in the locker room. How do the guys get along? Are they really in it together? And the other one is the chemistry on the field, how teams mesh together. I think we're in a situation where there are parts of the game that are not as good as it used to be, but the game that we see on the field every Saturday and we see on television on Saturday is as good as it's ever been. It is a great game. The games are incredibly competitive, and because of the transfer portal, I can't believe I'm saying something nice about the transfer portal, but because of the transfer portal, the players are more spread out. More people have games. They can rebuild their roster in a relatively short amount of time, as Vanderbilt did. So there's good and bad, but when you sit down to watch the game, it's good. It really is.
I do a show every Tuesday morning with Shane Matthews, and we've been discussing this topic for several years now. And I was concerned when Florida lost Billy Napier if they might lose DJ and a few other people, whatever. And if they ever be able to go back and rebuild it, of course, rebuild it from what? We know that last year was an anomaly with what happened the last 5 games. And now we thought it would repeat itself this year. It did not. And Shane says, don't even worry about it. you can wipe them all out and you can have a good team next year.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in some cases that's proved to be the case. I want to get into the topic of Billy Napier. Excuse me, not Billy Napier, Lane Kiffin right now, if I can. Alpha Gator USA wrote this. Well, it says, hey, buddy, I know Lane posts pictures of doing a hot yoga. Any recommendation for him in Gainesville? No, I don't. But I will say I followed his social media posts a lot, and he's posting this information, these daily thoughts, and I keep seeing them. And I finally ran down where they came from, and this is where they kind of bought the book. And it's not anything you think Lane Kiffin would be, reading. It's pretty good. I will say there's some good meaty things, some thoughts about, and it kind of moves you to your center and gets you away from. You heard Lane say now his goal used to be to get a statue of himself,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not the case anymore. He's more selfless, if that's a word we can use with Lane.
Mm-hmm.
He's changed his life a lot, including not drinking or whatever that means. But for him, it works. He says he's changed his values. He loves having his family with him, although they're divorced. His son's having a great year at Oxford High School. He's a very happy man. And I said to Shane a long time ago, why would you want to leave that? I mean, why would you want to if you found yourself? So, but I don't know. So this book might hold a secret. I have not. I know who this guy is. He's not the guy you read his. You don't expect him to be reading things like this guy with the American Ballet Theater, etc. But it's obviously quite. It's deep.
Right.
When I think of Lane Kiffin, I don't think deep. Do you guys?
I went to see him this summer, in Oxford.
Oh, this guy here? Oh, Lane, you mean?
went to see him this summer, and it's just amazing how he's matured from when he first came in the league. When Saban brought him into the league, he was not a mature coach. But the whole key to Kiffin, guys, is he's been doing a lot of work. He did a great piece with Ryan McGee, where he talked about, hey, I used to be the guy who wanted that statue. I don't want that anymore.
Yeah.
I've got my kids with me. I've got my, and the family. And so if he's sincere about that, then what he does is his representative will maximize what he can get at Ole Miss. In other words, make the Ole Miss game as attractive as you possibly can through negotiations. And so what if you're making $1 million or $2 million less than the other guy? Or, when you get up to that kind of money, it doesn't make any sense that you would base it on something else other than the quality of life. So Lane tells us he's a quality of life guy now. Okay. Is he sincere about that? We're going to find out.
He says money will never make a decision for him. He declared that money will not be his standard. And and Jimmy Sexton says, well, don't say that. Let's bring Kevin Brockway from the Gators son in and say hello to
Tony. Did you get my text or no?
Kevin, I owe you a phone call, buddy. I will make it up to you.
No, one of these days. No, it's fine. And buddy, I'm surprised that you don't have any hot yoga recommendations. Are you a hot yoga guy?
Yeah,
no?
I am. No, I am not. I'm going to start reading this guy about the book, so I'll find out more about it. Listen, to me, I just like to get up out of bed the next day and be able to get to the coffee pot. That's my yoga for the day right there. So we've had a very interesting conversation tonight about the coaches and about Kiffin, about the game changing, whether it's better or worse, etc. And I want to talk specifically about Kiffin. He has now moved to the front of the pack, guys, on the betting line as the favorite coach to take over in Florida. And what are you hearing there, Kevin? And what do you think?
I think that, it's still, I think the allure of Florida is still the visor and, wanting to be that play caller, and be that guy that sits in the chair that Steve Spurrier sat. I think that, a couple of years ago when he did that like Flame M Joy that was kind of making fun of the spring game, I think that he was a little perturbed that he was passed over. That was kind of my read on it, the first time under Billy Napier. And here's an opportunity again. I mean, it's another chance, but but you bring up the point about messing with Happy also and messing with, the family situation there. And I do think that will come into play. And Lane is a guy that I've heard has been fickle. I mean, I heard that he was close to going to Auburn and then kind of changed his mind at the last minute. So I think you never really know, it's going to be kind of a day-to-day, week-to-week thing, what's in his head and what's, who's to say if Ole Miss goes on a run, do you wait for him? I think that's the other big question too.
Well, he's going to have to see his team through, that's for sure. And that's part of it. Timing's the big thing, and that could end up best. Of course, the best thing that happened for Florida was the LSU, or the Louisiana governor, getting involved, and that helped Florida's cause a lot. And let's just tell it like it is now. He said, Lane or nobody, like this is how people feel, and I kind of agree. And I don't even know who the second place coach. I mean, I know Drinkwitz. I was a big fan of Drinkwitz. I don't think he's the guy. So I don't know, but if it's not Lane, is Lane or nobody, Keith? Is that what it's going to be?
I mean, it's from what I'm told, and you guys are probably hearing the same thing right now. That's Florida's sole focus. I mean, there's two orbits, obviously. One is Lane, and then the other one they're working. They're doing research on the other guys. Obviously, they've got Turnkey helping them. But it's Lane or bust. It's Lane until it isn't Lane. But you're right, buddy. Nobody seems to have a clear, and maybe Tony can speak to this or has some insight into this, but nobody seems to know who the number two would be. If it was right now, if Lane's representatives called up Scott Strickland and said he's out, nobody seems to have a clear picture of who number two would be. We know Jed Fish is sort of angling for it.
I can't see Jed Fish. I just can't see.
It doesn't. It doesn't seem. It doesn't. He only coached in the South for a couple of years at the University of Miami. He's 29 and 31. He's got a pretty good buyout too, I believe. I think I've read that where if it's like $10 million if he left before January 8th of next year. So there's some things there. Drinkwitz, the fans seem lukewarm on him. Not that they make the decisions, but sometimes that matters. Just ask Tennessee and Greg Schiano about that. And then, so who else would it be? You've got, Brent Key. There was some initial buzz, not so much lately. James Franklin was a guy they vetted, no buzz at all lately.
He joined at Virginia Tech.
Yeah, are they going to look at Clark Lee? There's some thought that they might. Initially.
Why would Clark Lee leave Vanderbilt, Tony? He would.
That's the thing. He has found at home. He said we're going to turn this into a championship program. People laughed at him. And look at him now. So I don't think he's got some roots in that Vanderbilt community. Guys, I will tell you, well, first of all, you tell Lane, we're only going to offer – Florida would tell Lane's representative, we're only going to offer the job to one guy. And that's it.
Yeah.
You're our guy, and we're not doing anything until you
no leveraging.
Give us your decision. All right. If he says no, keep your eye on Jeff Brom. Okay.
I've heard that. I'm
telling you guys, he's a really good coach.
I know he's a good coach. I know, but go ahead, Kevin.
I covered Jeff at Purdue, Tony, and I love him. And I know that, Spurrier and Shane love him too. But would he leave Louisville? He's another one. He's entrenched. You know what I mean? He's from there. And does he think that he has an easier path to the CFP right now? I mean, he just beat Miami this year as an ACC champion at Louisville than he would in the SEC at Florida.
I agree with Tony, though, because we've had some people tell us, Kevin, you probably heard the same thing, buddy, you also, that would be Florida would be one of the few jobs he probably would take the call. He at least listen to. And so we've absolutely heard that. So I think Tony's onto something there. The question, I guess, would be, he might be in the playoffs too, guys.
Heck of a play caller from his time at Purdue. When I covered him at Purdue, he couldn't quite get the defense and the special teams figured out, but I think he did that and he matured and he got Purdue the Big Ten championship game and then obviously went to Louisville and he's taken it at a really good level there. But man, he's a St. Xavier high grad there. I mean, he really, there's a part, again, another guy happy, probably family's probably very happy there. I just wonder, would he leave that or would he want to be, a guy like a Howard Schnellenberger that really builds that program and and takes it to another level.
I wanted to ask Tony, buddy. Can I ask Tony a question?
Sure. If you have break, go ahead.
Tony, have you ever seen a year where there were this many guys that were hot coaches that were coaching at their alma maters? Kenny Dillingham, Clark Lee, Jeff Brom, Brent. You ever seen anything like this before?
No, not that many at the alma mater. I did a note on that earlier today, and the question is, what impact does that have today when you're talking about $12-14 million? I don't know, but it is very, very interesting that all these guys are staying at their alma maters, and how long, and it depends on where they are. How old are they? How much longer do they want to coach? Are you telling us you're going to coach here? Brent Key's going to coach at Georgia Tech for the rest of his life. Is that what he's telling us? And I don't know.
And I guess another part of that, and maybe I'm thinking too broadly here or too thinking I'm smart, but because these guys are at their alma mater, like Kirby Smart, like Steve Spurrier, does that give them some sort of edge at their alma mater that maybe they wouldn't be able to channel at another school? I don't know.
Yeah, I think recruiting wise, it does for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, no question. Hey, Florida Pride, Scott Strickland from his alma mater, Mississippi State. So
well, hey, Kevin, you're the basketball guy. You're the Florida Pride, Lon Kruger from his alma mater.
That's right, Kansas State. Yep, that's right.
Well, they Pride Ray Graves from his too, Georgia Tech. So here you go. In the remaining minutes, I'd like you all to weigh in on a couple of things each of them. I'll give you each of a couple of minutes to do this. One is, what is the best attribute? Everybody says Florida's the everything. I got this, I got that. What is the one single thing that you think Florida has as the most attractive quality for a coach? Think about that for a second. And then think about Billy Gonzalez's speech and his thing last week called Play for the Patch. I absolutely loved it at a time when it's rent a coach or rent an athletic director or whatever, and and get the NIL deal, whatever. He's appealing to the finer points or the good part of the game, which is to play for something with purpose. And he got his team to do that. They played well, and playing for the patch, I said last week, I know we don't like moral victories, but in baseball, there's things like fielder's choice, sacrifice fly that contribute to the game and the win. So sometimes you do things that don't get you the win, but it makes your program better. I subscribe to the theory that Florida got better in the game against Georgia, although they didn't win it. Coach Spurrier says they played for 3 quarters like they thought they could win it, in the fourth quarter while they couldn't. But give Georgia a lot of credit for what they did. So weigh in on two things. One is, what's the most attractive quality to an incoming coach? And what's your theory about, do you agree or disagree with the idea of playing for the patch? Why don't you start us out there, Kevin?
The recruiting footprint, I think, here is pretty good. I still think you've got obviously great talent in the state of Florida and, neighboring Georgia and you can still, and selling the SEC, you can still get great players here. And I think playing for the patch, obviously, hey, look, I mean, they played hard, they played motivated. Let's see if, that carries over into the tail end of the season here. Vernell, just a little news on the availability report. Vernell Brown III is questionable, so maybe an Aiden Mizell and Duke Clark, and maybe if they come back, give them a little more, receiving weapons, that could be helpful down the stretch this season, and we'll see how it plays out. But I think it's, Billy G. I mean, he came here 2005 with Urban Meyer. I mean, he knows what Florida means. He's been here 3 different starts, so I think he was channeling that, and he's channeled the history of the program in his press conferences, which I think is a smart thing to do at this time, a smart thing to do with the players in terms of, realizing the pride. And he was here during the, last national championship year. So he can draw on that and try to motivate these guys.
All right. Now I'm going to shift away here and pick up some off the floor, but I'm going to ask Keith to step up and answer the same 2 questions. I'll be watching and listening. Don't go away. And I'll be right back. But talk about most attractive quality and playing for the patch, okay?
Well, I'm in that Florida bubble. I covered Auburn for years, but I went to Florida, and I've covered Florida for a lot of years too. But it's really resources, which I include everything in that: facilities, recruiting base, all that. But then also livability. I mean, people like living in Florida. It's that simple. And Gainesville isn't at the beach, but it's close to the beach. Wake up at 7:30, you be in a beach chair by 9:15. So quality of life, resources. About the patch, Yeah, that's I don't even know how to really answer that. But one thing I'll say about Billy Gonzalez, the way he's talked the last couple of weeks, he's talking like a guy that actually went to the University of Florida. It feels like he's bleeding that orange and blue blood, to be honest with you. And I think that's something that tells me right there, I think they picked the right guy to lead this program for the rest of the season. And if he can get the guys to buy into that, and it seems they have. Now, obviously, it's a new day and age. These guys, they've got to get a paycheck. They've got to put good plays on tape, and I think that helps them too. But so far, so good. I think he said all the right things. I think he's pushing the right buttons. They were right there in a game against a team that is probably going to be, or a very good chance to be in the college football playoff. I mean, the only thing you could ask more of them is to win the game, but they were right there. Now they've got to make sure that this one loss doesn't become a second loss.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that happen to a lot of great Gator teams back to the 70s, 74 and 76. Florida lost heartbreakers to Georgia and then turn around and got thumped at Kentucky. Now, those were very good Kentucky teams. I don't know that this one's good, but they're good enough defensively to give Florida problems. But he seems to be pushing the right buttons with these guys. It's a very popular coach. If you ever talked to Billy Gonzalez, he's very quiet. I don't know how well you guys know him, but he's a very quiet guy.
I like him.
Yeah, fantastic guy. I happened to run into him on the sidelines at Dallas Wilson's high school game last year. And I had never met Billy before. And I said, I'm sorry for going on here, guys. And I said, hey, we started talking. I said, hey, your son goes to Western Carolina. I lived in Silva, North Carolina as a kid in my summers. That opened him right up. We talked for 20 minutes, and I just couldn't believe how genuine and how personable he was. And I became a personal fan of him just in one conversation. Forget about the wins and losses, just from the human element. So I think he's a guy that people can get behind. He's a good representative for the University of Florida these next month or so.
That's a good anecdote. And by the way, the thing I hear most from other coaches, including Urban Meyer, et cetera, Keith, was that you can recruit so many great players within 250 miles of Gainesville and be home for dinner most nights. Tony, give us your thoughts on whatever order you want to do that.
With Florida, I would just echo what's been said here. It's the entire package. It's the quality of life. As Keith said, it's living in the state of Florida. It's recruiting, 5-hour radius, get all the players that you want. There's more of a laid-back, fun atmosphere at the University of Florida than in other places. So, and you could sell that. And oh, by the way, we've won national champions not that long ago. So,
okay, well, how about playing for the logo?
Well, anything that you can do to motivate guys to believe in something bigger than themselves, to believe in each other, I'm all for. And so I think that's a very special part of the game. Guys, we have to stick together. We have to stick together, and that's what's got to happen at Florida for them to finish out the string here.
One little story, I think it was Keith that brought this up, and then Keith, you would know this person. I think also I know two Keiths both would like to hear this story. And you don't know this guy, Tony, but it's a great friend of mine, the late Augie Griner, who was such a big basketball fan and played at Florida, and then did so much for the program, and he was very close with the coaches there and started a big tip-off club. But he was recruited out of St. Louis, and he flew down here sight unseen, and he came to Gainesville. Okay, he didn't know anything about it, and he had a cab from Gainesville to the airport, and he asked the cab driver. He said, "Where's the beach?" And the guy said, 80 miles that way.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I've always had my friends from around the country say, why didn't they put Florida and Florida State somewhere near the beach?
Yeah.
And I said, well, you got to realize in 1905, the beaches in Florida were swamps, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Miami Beach didn't exist. It was a swamp. They hadn't even touched it yet, okay? They weren't going to put a university in Daytona Beach. It was, wetlands,
Yeah, I went to a certain university where we used to go to the pool between classes, and that was a lot of fun.
Well, y'all didn't go to class in Miami. Don't kid us. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, it is a great setting. I mean, there's a lot of great settings. There's a lot of great venues in the SEC. I mean, you look at Auburn. It's a beautiful little place. Really pretty. if you want the excitement, you can go to Baton Rouge and whatever. There's just so many great places you can go to in the SEC.
Athens.
Yeah. So it's
Music City, great city, even though we never get up there. I mean, I get up there for basketball, but
we're going to get up to them in 2 years. Is it next year we play up in Athens or the year after?
No, you play in Atlanta.
Atlanta. That's right. You're right. Yeah.
We get stopped in Athens and go down there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, my road days are coming to an end. I'm not going to travel as much as I used to for sure. But all right, final thoughts, each person, 15 seconds on the day, the week, and where we're going. How about you, Keith Niebuhr?
Oh, God, you had to start me. We're all just watching this coaching search, and we think, like I said, it's Lane or bust. It could be a few weeks of this, quite frankly. I mean, that's what it is. So you have to follow the peaks. You don't have to follow this. Just try to follow the trends. Did I make any sense there? I don't know.
Yeah.
Good Tony, help me out here, buddy.
Good stuff. I want to have you back on, Keith. Really enjoyed having you on. All right, Brockway, the other Keith 1, Keith 2. Brockway, what you got? Final thoughts.
Florida basketball sky is not falling. They travel halfway across the country for that game to face Arizona and the whistles, I think when the crowd got into it, weren't necessarily their favor. Come out, support them on Thursday night. They're going to, have a nice banner, either raising or kind of ceremony for North Florida. And, it's not every day you're coming off a national championship season. So go out there and enjoy it.
I've never seen a basketball player's jersey ripped off of him and not get a foul call. I saw that in that game. And Chinley got his jersey ripped off, and there was no foul call. So, all right. So Tony, the eloquent Mr. College Football, gets the final thought. Put a dot on an exclamation point. We'll go get some milk and cookies and go to bed. Tony?
Well, where we are right now, we are getting ready, gentlemen, to have a November that we're always going to remember. It's going to be one of those great. When you look at all the teams that are in contention, you're looking at 6 SEC teams out of the top 12, which means there's going to be a bunch of games in November that count towards who gets in the playoff. It's going to be something special.
And it's a November nightmare if you're covering a coaching search.
Yeah, Tony, thank you. Keith, thank you very much. I hope Keith Niebuhr, hope you'll come back. All right?
Anytime.
Have a good night. Good stuff, guys. All right. Thank you. We're going to wrap up the show now and tell you about our friends, our sponsors. They make this thing go. We appreciate them very much. We mentioned Elder Law earlier, and tonight we're going to tell you about Titan MRI and Imaging, located 3 places in Gainesville. 3 places, is about to be 4. 2 in Gainesville with Park Avenue, and now Millennium Center, and 1 in Lake City, serving all of Columbia County and Valdosta, Georgia. Titan MRI and Imaging offers the same great customer service as always. What I like about them is that they will make you an appointment for nights if you can't come during the day. I think that's their effort to accommodate you, the customer. They accept insurance, or you can go through their convenient self-pay options. They offer MRIs, CAT scans, X-rays, and ultrasounds. They have the best feature, I think. The larger MRI machines for your patient comfort. You don't have to get claustrophobic. You climb in one of those tubes. And these folks take care of things. No ERs, no hospitals. Coming soon to Ocala, better serve Marion County, surrounding area. Titan MRI, it's your choice. Thanks to our great guests tonight. Enjoyed having them on. It's Kentucky this weekend. We got more ball, and basketball season is upon us. It's going to be some kind of fun. Don't forget, we're coming soon to your neighborhood with a new book by Franz Beard, The Golden Year. All right. Have a good night, folks.